Hey, I'm Emma. Welcome to Emma's Betrayal Stories now. Before we start, go grab a snack and get comfortable for a bit. These stories aren't rushed. They're the kind you sit with. Today's story comes with an update and my own personal opinions throughout the story. Let me know in the comments if you agree or see it differently. Let's begin. I caught my brother sabotaging my business. I exposed him and became a success against all odds. My laptop was balanced on my knees on the cold tile floor of the back room, and I could feel my pulse in my fingertips as I refreshed the dashboard again and again like it was going to magically change. Another cancellation. Another refund. Another message stamped in that cheery customer service font that made my stomach twist. I'm so disappointed. I'll be warning others. I could hear the front door chime out in the shop area, someone walking in, and the normal sound of it made me want to scream because nothing was normal. My throat tasted metallic, like I'd bitten my tongue. I wiped my palms on my leggings, but they were still slick. Then I saw it. A login activity page I'd never bothered to look at before. A list of IP addresses, locations, times. One of them wasn't mine. One of them wasn't even in my suburb. It was coming from my parents' street. I shoved myself up too fast and smacked my shoulder on the edge of the workbench. The pain didn't even register properly. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my keys and my phone, and I could barely get the back door lock to turn because my grip kept slipping. I walked through the shop pretending I wasn't about to fall apart, forcing a smile at the customer standing near the display shelf. "Be right with you," I heard myself say, like a recording. My voice sounded far away. I got to my car and slammed the door so hard the window rattled. The steering wheel felt slick under my palms. My stomach lurched as the reality finally caught up with the evidence, and I said it out loud in the empty car, like naming it would make it less terrifying. It's him. It's actually him. It was a Monday morning when everything started going wrong in a way I couldn't explain, and I remember the day clearly because Mondays are my admin days. I don't do production until noon. I do invoices, reply to emails, update my stock list, schedule deliveries. I run a small business called Loon and Lather, hand-poured soy candles and body oils, the kind of thing people buy for birthdays when they don't know what else to get, and the kind of thing bridal parties obsess over when the labels match the wedding palette. I started it on my kitchen bench 3 years ago after quitting a corporate job that made me feel like I was slowly disappearing. It wasn't glamorous in the beginning. It was me, a cheap thermometer, wax flakes in my hair, and a stack of postage boxes that made my apartment look like I was hoarding cardboard. But it worked. Not overnight, not viral, not 6 figures in 6 weeks nonsense, just steady, stubborn growth. By the time I leased a tiny studio with a storefront window, my parents still treated it like a phase. My mom would say, "It's cute," the same way people describe a toddler's drawing. My dad would ask if I'd thought about going back to a real job. And my brother, Caleb, my brother loved to smile like he was proud of me while slipping in little comments that made my skin prickle. "So you're selling smells," he once said at dinner, laughing like it was a harmless joke. "Don't get high on your own supply." Everyone laughed except me, because I knew what he was doing. Caleb has always needed to be the loudest person in the room. He's 2 years older than me, always has a story, always has a plan, always has an excuse for why the plan didn't work. He's the type who calls himself an entrepreneur when what he really means is unemployed with confidence. The Monday things went weird. I opened my inbox to a flood of customer replies to emails I hadn't sent. People were confused, angry, hurt. One woman wrote, "Why are you canceling my order? This is for my sister's memorial." Another said, "You refunded me, but I didn't ask for that. Are you okay?" I stared at the screen with my coffee half lifted to my mouth, and the coffee went cold because I forgot it existed. At first I thought I'd been hacked. I reset passwords. I turned on two-factor authentication. I called my payment processor. I emailed my web host. I did everything you do when you're trying to plug a leak in a boat while you're still in the water. But it kept happening. Orders would come in overnight and be canceled before I even woke up. Reviews started appearing, 1 star, vague, mean in a way that felt personal. Owner is unstable. Products smell like chemicals. Bad vibes. That one, bad vibes, made my vision blur with anger because it sounded like something Caleb would say while smirking into his phone. Then came the supplier issue. My wax supplier emailed, "Hi Maya, your account is flagged for non-payment. Please settle outstanding invoices before we ship." I called them immediately, voice too high, and the accounts lady said, "We received an email from you last week changing the billing address and payment details." I hadn't. My stomach dropped so hard I had to sit down on the shop floor behind the counter, back against the cabinets, surrounded by neatly stacked jars that suddenly looked like evidence of a life that could be taken away. I drove to my parents' house that day after I saw the login location. I didn't plan anything clever. I didn't rehearse lines. I just drove on muscle memory and rage. My hands were numb on the wheel. My jaw clenched so hard my molars hurt. When I pulled into the driveway, my mom's car was there. Caleb's car was there too, the old hatchback with the dented rear bumper he swears is aerodynamic. I walked inside without knocking because I still had a key, and the smell of my mom's cooking hit me like a punch. Garlic, onions, comfort. It made me feel sick because it reminded me how much I wanted to be safe in that house and how unsafe I suddenly felt. "Maya?" Mom called from the kitchen, cheerful. "You're early. Are you here for lunch?" "Where's Caleb?" I asked, and my voice didn't sound like mine. She came around the corner wiping her hands on a tea towel. Her smile faltered. "Downstairs, I think." "Why?" I didn't answer. I just walked past her toward the basement door. My heart was slamming against my ribs like it wanted out. I heard Caleb's voice before I saw him, laughing at something on a video, that careless laugh he uses when he thinks he's untouchable. He was sitting at the little desk in the basement guest room, my dad's old desktop monitor glowing in front of him, headphones around his neck. The room smelled like stale laundry and dust. He looked up when I entered and did that lazy, half grin. "What's up, May?" I stood there holding my phone out like a weapon. "Why are you logging into my store?" I said. His eyebrows rose, too smooth, too practiced. "What?" "I can see the login activity," I said, my voice shaking now. "It's from this house. It's from this room." He gave a small laugh like I'd accused him of stealing a pen. "You're being paranoid." My hands were trembling so badly, I had to brace my elbow against my side. "Customers are getting cancellations. My supplier says I changed my billing details. Reviews are popping up calling me unstable. Orders are disappearing. It's you." He leaned back in the chair and crossed his arms, eyes narrowing. Why would I do that? And that was the moment I knew. Because he didn't look confused. He looked offended, like I'd guessed his punchline too early. I stepped forward and snatched the mouse off the desk. He jerked his hand out like he was going to grab it back, but I was faster. The screen was still open on a browser. And there it was, right in front of me, like my life as a set of tabs, my Shopify admin panel. My email account. A Google Doc titled Angles with bullet points and little timestamps. My stomach turned over. Caleb stood up fast, chair scraping. "Hey, don't touch my..." "Your what?" I snapped, and my voice cracked. My eyes stung. "Your sabotage plan?" His face went red in a way that made him look younger, meaner. "You're being dramatic," he said louder now. "It's not sabotage. It's..." "What is it?" I demanded. "What is it, Caleb?" "Because my business is bleeding. People think I'm canceling memorial orders. People think I'm unstable." He raised his hands like he was calming me down, like I was the problem. "Relax. I was testing your systems." I stared at him. "Testing?" "Yeah," he said, gaining confidence now that he'd found a word. "Like stress testing. You should be thanking me. If you're gonna grow, you need to know where you're weak." I laughed, this sharp, ugly sound that scraped my throat. "So, you stress tested me by refunding customers and changing my supplier billing information?" He shrugged, like it was all just business. "You've been acting like you're better than everyone because you sell candles. Mom and Dad won't shut up about how proud they are, like you're some genius. Meanwhile, You're what? I cut in. What, Caleb? What are you? Because I'm looking at my account open on your screen. His eyes flicked to the monitor, then back to me, calculating. You don't understand how this works, he said, voice hard. You're emotional. You always get emotional. Mom appeared in the doorway then, drawn by the yelling. What's going on? She asked, alarmed, eyes darting between us. I didn't take my eyes off Caleb. He's been logging into my business accounts, I said. He's been canceling orders and messing with my suppliers. Mom blinked like I'd spoken another language. Caleb, is that true? Caleb's face shifted into that expression he's used on her for years. Hurt, victim, misunderstood. Mom, she's spiraling, he said. She thinks the whole world is against her because her little shop has a few issues. I felt my body go cold. It's open, I said, pointing at the screen. It's literally open. Mom stepped closer, peered at the monitor. Her mouth tightened. Caleb, he snapped. I told you I was helping. She's not listening to me. She thinks she knows everything. Mom looked at me like she wanted this to be a misunderstanding she could clean up with a tea towel. Maya, maybe he really was just helping. I turned to her slowly, disbelief rising like heat. Helping? I said. Mom, my customers are threatening chargebacks. My supplier thinks I'm a fraud. My reputation is being trashed. This is helping. She swallowed, eyes flicking between us. Caleb, why do you have her passwords? Caleb's jaw clenched. Because she used my laptop once, he said, quick. She logged in. I saved it. Not my fault. My hands shook again. I remembered it instantly. 6 months ago, at Christmas, my laptop had died mid-order print. Caleb had offered his laptop with that fake generous grin. Use mine, he'd said. No big deal. I'd logged in quickly to print shipping labels. I'd been grateful. I'd been stupid. I lifted my phone, opened the login history, and showed Mom the entries. Look at the times, I said. Middle of the night. From here. Multiple days. Mom stared at the screen, and I watched her face change, like she was forcing herself to accept something she didn't want to believe. Caleb saw it too. His posture shifted, defensive now. Then Dad's heavy footsteps came down the stairs. What the hell is all this? He demanded. Mom turned to him, voice shaky. Caleb's been in Maya's business accounts. Dad looked at Caleb, then at me, irritation already building like he decided this was my fault for making noise. Is that true? Caleb started talking fast. Dad, she's exaggerating. I was showing her some security stuff. Dad cut him off. Did you touch her accounts, yes or no? Caleb hesitated. That tiny hesitation was everything. Dad's face darkened. Caleb. Caleb's voice turned sharp. Feeney. Yes. But it wasn't malicious. She's making a big deal because she loves drama. My vision blurred. Not from tears, not yet, just from rage and that horrible betrayal heat. You cancel memorial orders, I said. You refunded people. You posted reviews calling me unstable. Caleb scoffed. If your business can't survive a few cancellations, it's not a real business. Something in me snapped into this clear, icy focus. I took a photo of the screen. Then another. The Google Doc titled Angles. The tabs. The admin panel. I zoomed in on the date and time in the corner like a lawyer. Caleb stepped forward like he was going to grab my phone, but Dad moved between us. Give her space, Dad barked. Caleb pointed at me like I was the criminal. She's gonna ruin my life over this. I looked him dead in the eye. You already tried to ruin mine, I said, and my voice went steady in a way that surprised even me. I walked upstairs with my phone clutched tight, my legs feeling like they belonged to someone else. Mom followed, pleading. Maya, please. Let's talk about this calmly. I turned at the top of the stairs. I'm done being calm, I said quietly. I'm done protecting him. And then I left. Okay, I'm going to be blunt. Caleb is the kind of person who calls cruelty help and then acts offended when you don't thank him for it. The stress testing excuse is laughable. This wasn't a cybersecurity drill. It was sabotage dressed up as innovation because he can't stand being outshone by someone he's always looked down on. And the worst part is how familiar his lines are. You're emotional. You're spiraling. You love drama. That's not a defense. That's a strategy. It's how people like him stay slippery. If he can make you look unstable, nobody has to look at what he actually did. The parents are complicated. Dad at least asked the direct yes or no question, which is more than a lot of families manage. Mom, though, is doing the classic please let it be a misunderstanding dance. I get it emotionally, but functionally it enables the behavior. The second she tried to reframe it as maybe he was helping, she basically handed Caleb a shield. And the narrator? She's been trained to be the reasonable one, which makes this kind of betrayal hit harder because she probably spent years earning trust and being responsible, only to find out her own brother saw her passwords as an opportunity. The smartest thing she did was take photos immediately. Evidence turns gaslighting into background noise. Now she needs to protect her business like it's a living thing because it is. Caleb didn't just mess with numbers. He messed with her reputation, and reputation is oxygen for a small business. If she tries to keep peace, she'll suffocate. If she draws hard boundaries, she'll finally breathe. Update. So, I didn't sleep that night. I went home and sat on my couch with my laptop open, refreshing my store dashboard like an addict, watching the mess continue in real time because Caleb had already done the damage and I didn't even know the full scope yet. Every new cancellation felt like a small punch. Every angry email felt like a stranger spitting on my front step. At 2:13 a.m., I did the most humiliating thing I've done in a long time. I drafted an email to my entire customer list. Not the marketing list, my recent orders. I wrote, "Hi, this is Maya, the owner. I'm sorry for the confusion. Please know any cancellations/refunds you didn't request were not initiated by you. I'm investigating unauthorized access to my account. If you received a cancellation email, please reply here and I will personally make it right." I stared at that paragraph for an hour before sending it because it felt like admitting weakness. But then I remembered the memorial order message and my stomach twisted. I hit send. The next morning I called a lawyer. I didn't even know what kind. I just Googled small business lawyer unauthorized access and picked someone with decent reviews and an office near me. Her name was Simone, and she sounded like she'd heard every version of family betrayal possible and didn't have time for anyone's excuses. "Do you have evidence?" she asked. "I have photos of the accounts open on his computer," I said. "Login history, supplier email records, and customer emails." "Good," she said. "Do not warn him again. Do not negotiate. We're going to treat this as what it is, unauthorized access and interference with business." Hearing it phrased that way, clean, official, made my hands stop shaking for the first time in days. Simone had me change everything immediately. Passwords, backup emails, security keys. She told me to call my payment processor and report suspected account compromise. She told me to document every cancellation. She told me to screenshot the one-star reviews and report them. She told me to call my supplier and put a note on my account. Changes only accepted by phone with a security phrase. Then she said the thing that made my throat close. "We should consider a police report." I sat at my kitchen table staring at a sticky patch of wax on my placemat like it held the answer. "It's my brother," I whispered. Simone didn't soften her voice. He didn't act like a brother. He acted like a hostile third party. So I filed a report. It felt surreal. The officer asked questions like he was checking boxes. "Do you know the suspect? Do you have proof? Did you give him permission?" I answered through a thick, numb layer, trying not to cry in a fluorescent-lit station like a child. When I left, I sat in my car and shook for 10 minutes, not because I regretted it, but because I couldn't believe I'd waited so long to take myself seriously. Meanwhile, my family went into full meltdown. Mom called me 17 times in one day. 17. When I finally answered, she didn't ask if I was okay. "Maya, What are you doing? She demanded. Your father says you're talking to a lawyer. This is going to destroy Caleb. I gripped the phone so tight my knuckles hurt. He destroyed my business, I said. He didn't mean it, she insisted. He's going through a hard time. I laughed, a short, harsh sound. So was I. He made sure of it. Then Dad got on the line, and I could hear Caleb in the background shouting like a distant TV. Dad's voice was tight. Can we handle this privately? I tried, I said. For years. Privately is where my problems get buried. That's when Caleb texted me a long message that made my skin crawl. It started with, "You're really gonna do this?" and then shifted into threats disguised as pity. You think anyone will trust your brand after you admit you were hacked? You think clients will respect you if you can't secure a password? You're making yourself look incompetent. He was trying to scare me back into silence. He was trying to make me choose pride over survival. I forwarded the message to Simone. She replied with one sentence. He's digging the hole deeper. Within 48 hours, Simone sent Caleb a formal cease and desist with specific demands. Stop accessing accounts, stop defaming, stop contacting suppliers/customers, preserve all devices and communications, and respond through counsel only. She also sent a letter to my parents' address, because that's where Caleb lived. That letter detonated my family like a grenade. Mom showed up at my shop during business hours, red-eyed, dramatic, like she was the one being violated. She marched past a customer, ignoring my "please don't" gesture, and hissed, "How could you do this to your own brother?" I stepped out from behind the counter and lowered my voice. "You're making a scene? You're ruining him," she said, voice rising anyway. A customer in a scarf pretended not to listen while clearly listening. I felt my face burn. I leaned in close, because I wasn't going to give Mom a performance. He logged into my accounts, I said. He canceled orders. He tampered with billing. He posted fake reviews. He did that. Not me. Mom's mouth trembled. He was jealous, she whispered, like jealousy was a fever, not a choice. I don't care what he felt, I said. I care what he did. Mom stared at me like she didn't recognize me. Maybe she didn't. Because the old me would have apologized for being hurt. Then, 2 days later, the most petty, predictable thing happened. Caleb posted on Facebook. He didn't name me, but he didn't have to. He wrote a long rant about family betrayal and snakes and how success changes people. His friends commented things like, "Stay strong, bro," and "Karma will get her." My aunt liked it. My mom didn't comment, but she didn't tell him to take it down either. I didn't respond publicly. Simone told me not to. Priya told me not to. Even Dad texted, "Don't engage," which was rich, coming from him, but still. Instead, I did something boring and effective. I worked. I personally called every customer who'd been impacted. I remade orders. I offered refunds where appropriate. I wrote handwritten notes that said, "Thank you for your patience. I'm sorry you were dragged into something you didn't deserve." I stayed late. I cut my production schedule down to what I could deliver reliably. I asked my friend Priya to help me pack orders on weekends and paid her properly, even though it hurt my cash flow, because I wasn't going to family favor anyone ever again. And then something unexpected happened. Customers responded. One woman emailed me, "My brother is like this too. I'm proud of you for not letting him ruin you." Another wrote, "Your honesty made me trust you more." People left reviews saying, "The owner handled a difficult situation with integrity." It was like the sabotage tried to push me underwater, and instead it forced me to surface where people could actually see me. That doesn't mean it didn't hurt. Every time my phone buzzed with a family message, my chest tightened. Every time I walked past a brother-sister card in a gift shop, I felt nauseous. But my business didn't die. It limped, then steadied, then started moving forward again. Then Simone called me on a Thursday afternoon and said, "We have enough for a civil claim if you want to pursue damages. And the police report is progressing." I stared at the rows of candles on my shelf. Labels straight, wicks centered, everything tidy and controlled in a world that had been chaos, and I realized I wasn't asking if I could win anymore. I was asking if I was ready to stop carrying the guilt for someone else's choices. Now, continuing the story to the finish. 2 weeks later, Caleb tried to show up at my shop. I was restocking a display when the door chime rang and my body reacted before my brain did. I looked up and saw him in the doorway, hands shoved in his hoodie pocket like he was just popping in to say hi. For a second, my legs went weak. My brain flashed through every terrible outcome. Him yelling, him breaking something, him charming customers into thinking I was the villain. He smiled. That same lazy smile. "Can we talk?" he asked. My mouth went dry. "No," I said, loud enough for the 2 customers near the window to hear. He stepped forward anyway, gaze sliding around like he owned the air. "Maya, you're taking this way too far." I pointed toward the door, keeping my arms steady. "Leave. Right now." His smile slipped into annoyance. "Are you really going to make a scene?" I almost laughed at the irony. "You don't get to accuse me of scenes," I said. My voice shook, but I didn't hide it. "You already did enough damage." He lowered his voice, like we were negotiating. "If you drop it, I'll—" "No." I cut in. His eyes hardened. "You think you're so special now," he spat. "Little candle queen." I felt something in my chest settle, like a final piece clicking into place. "Get out," I said. He leaned closer, and I could smell stale energy drink on his breath. "You're gonna regret this," he muttered. I didn't respond to the threat. I just lifted my phone and dialed my non-emergency number with my thumb hovering over the call button, making sure he could see. "I'll call," I said. For a split second, I saw him weigh it, whether he could push me and still get away with it. Then he scoffed and backed toward the door, throwing his hands up dramatically. "Fine. Enjoy being alone." When the door shut behind him, my whole body trembled. I went into the back room and crouched by the shelves, breathing hard, one hand pressed to my sternum. It wasn't fear exactly. It was the aftershock of choosing myself in real time. That night, Dad texted, "Caleb says you humiliated him." I stared at the message until the letters blurred. Then I replied, "He humiliated me in front of my customers and suppliers. I protected my business." No reply. A month later, Caleb was charged with unauthorized access-related offenses. The officer explained it in more official terms, and Simone filed a civil claim for damages tied to lost revenue, chargebacks, and reputational harm. It didn't end in a dramatic courtroom scene. Most real-life consequences don't. It ended with Caleb scrambling for a lawyer he couldn't afford, my parents furious at me for airing family issues, and a settlement offer that looked like a confession dressed as compromise. I accepted a structured settlement that required him to pay back a portion monthly and included a permanent non-disparagement clause. The money wasn't even the main thing. The clause was. It meant he couldn't keep poisoning my name and calling it truth. Then my supplier called and said, "We saw what happened. We're impressed with how you handled it. We'd like to feature your brand in our small business spotlight." I sat at my desk staring at that email, and I started laughing and crying at the same time, quiet and weird because it felt like the universe was taking notes. The spotlight feature led to a bump in orders. Then a local boutique reached out. Then a wedding planner offered to include my products in a vendor package. My business didn't just recover, it matured. I stopped running it like a fragile secret and started running it like something that deserved protection and growth. I hired Priya part-time officially. I installed better security. I stopped using any device that wasn't mine. I learned to say no fast. My family never had that neat apology moment people fantasize about. Mom never sat me down and said, "I'm sorry I protected him." Dad never admitted he tried to keep it private because public consequences embarrassed him. Talia never acknowledged she'd liked Caleb's victim posts. They just adjusted around the new reality where I wasn't the forgiving sponge anymore. And weirdly, that was enough. Because I didn't need them to validate my reality. I had receipts. I had a business still standing. I had customers who stayed. I had friends who packed boxes with me at midnight. I had a life that Caleb couldn't access with a saved password. The last time I saw Caleb was at Nana's birthday. He kept his distance like I was a fence with a current running through it. He didn't look at me. He didn't speak to me. He looked smaller somehow, like the confidence had a leak in it. Nana hugged me when I arrived and whispered, "You did right." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat, and for the first time in a long time, I believed it without needing anyone else to repeat it. Caleb is genuinely one of the most dangerous types of saboteur because he doesn't see himself as a villain. He sees himself as owed. He treats his sister's success like an insult directed at him personally, and then he tries to correct the injustice by yanking her down. The whole stress testing excuse is the kind of nonsense people say when they're smart enough to know what they did was wrong, but arrogant enough to think they can talk their way out of consequences. And the way he weaponizes language, calling her emotional, claiming she's spiraling, trying to frame her boundaries as drama, shows he's been practicing that manipulation for years. He's not impulsive. He's strategic. He wanted her to doubt herself more than he wanted to win. That's nasty. Mom is a textbook enabler. Not because she's evil, but because she's addicted to the fantasy that her family is fine, and she'll sacrifice reality to protect that fantasy. The minute she asked Maya to interpret sabotage as help, she basically handed Caleb a permission slip. Her obsession with keeping things private isn't love, it's reputation management. Dad is slightly better in that he forced a yes/no answer, but he still tries to steer everything toward convenience. Handle it privately, don't make a scene. Think of your mother, which is just another form of protecting the person who causes harm because it's easier than confronting him. Priya is the real MVP. Friends like that are the reason people survive family dysfunction without turning bitter. She shows up, works, holds boundaries, and doesn't confuse loyalty with enabling. Simone the lawyer is also a hero in the most underrated way. She treats the situation like what it is, not what the family wants to pretend it is. She gives Maya language and structure when everyone else tries to blur the truth. And Maya? She's the kind of person who's been trained to be reasonable to the point of self-erasure, and watching her choose evidence over guilt is satisfying in a way that feels real. She doesn't win with a cheesy speech. She wins by making the boring, painful adult choices, documenting, reporting, rebuilding trust one customer at a time, refusing to negotiate with someone who already proved he'd burn her life for entertainment. The biggest success isn't even the money or the spotlight feature. It's the shift where she stops carrying the shame for someone else's sabotage. Caleb deserved consequences. Maya deserved peace. And honestly, this is one of those rare stories where against all odds actually fits, because the odds weren't the market. The odds were her own family,